Hello, everyone. It's nice to have you here with us today. We're going to be talking about the Rave New Year 2024. So, I'm going to give the introduction to Celestina about the topic and what that exactly means to get a deeper insight into this topic.
Are you popcorning it to me? If so, I did a deeper dive into this morning, and it was really interesting as to how many calendars that I came across, right? Like Gregorian calendars, and there's another one too that escapes that is the name has escaped me. Nonetheless, is I feel like the rave calendar doesn't come up as much in typical day to day. Honestly, even if you Google it, it is very limited. And I think it's really interesting because it's based off of like the solar cycles. And I feel like the sun has such an impact on our lives, especially in the human design world, right? Like the position of our sun is so indicative of like who we become as a human, especially our incarnation crosses, right? So it's really cool to see how the sun also plays a role in the Rave New Year. And it's based in four different stages. So the first stage of the Rave New Year actually happens on December 31st, which is the last day of the previous year, obviously, when we're all probably setting intentions for the next year. And yeah, based off of like a cyclical cycle, I guess that would make sense. But if you're going off based off of the Rave New Year, that's probably not the best or most ideal time to set an intention for the following year. And we'll dive deeper into that throughout this conversation. But stage one, as set out by Ra back in like the old late 80s, early 90s, right? That sounds right. Um, Miko's nodding her head for those of you just listening on the podcast. So stage one is basically when the sun enters gate 38, and this happens again on December 31st of the previous year. So gate 38 and gate 39 are like across from each other on the something with an M. What is it called?
Mandala.
Mandala. There you go. See, I saw the word in my head, but the words were not coming out of my mouth. And that's why telepathy, those words. So essentially, what happens at this point is there's an obstruction in the energy at this point. So making a New Year's resolution on the 31st is probably not most ideal. So yeah, I'm gonna let Miko take more of the in-depths of gate 38 and kind of explain as to why.
So, gate 38 is about the fighter, and it's a new year should not necessarily start at that point because we have a start codon in DNA, and we use this in human design as well, which Celestina is going to explain a little further down the road. But that is actually the start, and that's why we start the new year in human design on the 22nd of January. And gate 38 still has a lot of residual energy. So there's still a lot of pressure because it's also in the root center. And so it's not, that's what is meant when we're saying that it's not ideal to set resolutions, or at least start resolutions on the 1st of January. So a lot of people, they will start their New Year's resolutions, and then a few weeks later, 1 or 2 weeks later, they just fall back down the rabbit hole and they're like, okay, I can't do this. I can't go to the gym every day. I can't eat healthy every day, or things like this. And this is part of the reason. So trying to push that to the 22nd of January would be more supportive in the energy.
And the energy continues to change up until the 22nd too, right? So like there's so much happening. So that was just stage one happening on the 31st. Stage two is when the sun enters gate 54, and that happens on the 5th, which also just happens to be Miko's birthday. Ayo, girl. But with this, we're basically looking for purpose, right? Like, did it work? Did you find your purpose? Did you find your spirit? And there's still, I feel like, with stage one, there's a lot of reflection that needs to still be happening on the past year. And I feel like even in stage two, and you can tell me if I'm wrong with this, but I feel like there's still so much reflection that still needs to be happening earlier in the year before we can more succinctly say what we want to accomplish in the year that we've just entered.
Yeah, it's still kind of like a hibernation feeling. I mean, we're also still in winter. Nature is also still hibernating. So it's more aligned to the normal rhythm of nature as well, to just push the New Year's resolution or having the energy for those a little later in the month.
And it's interesting. So now I've lived bi-hemispherally. So this time last year, I was living in Germany, and now I'm coming at you guys from Australia. So it's very interesting experiencing what would typically be a winter for the Northern Hemisphere now in the summer, right? Because my body was still in the Northern Hemisphere in the fall, like the Northern Hemisphere fall, and now I've come into it here, like from fall back to summer. And I very much wanted to hibernate. And I was kind of in that mode for like most of November and early December. And only recently have I broken back out of that and like understood that it's summertime here. So it's very interesting seeing the new year from a Northern Hemisphere perspective in the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah, and that's also a great point because even um, planetary constellations or celestial events are going to be different for you than it is for me. So I'm currently in Saudi Arabia, which is not that far. Like normally, Germany and Australia would be a bit further away, even.
Yeah.
But Australia really is just on the other side of the world, no matter where you are. That's how it feels.
It really is, though.
Maybe Bali, but then you still have to cross the whole continent to get to
Yeah.
Sydney, for example. So
Yeah. Yeah. So it's definitely been very interesting. And I think taking the experiences that you have based off of where you physically are is also really important to take into account through every conversation that we have, like on this podcast, because I've never lived in this hemisphere before and it's definitely been very different. So take that into account. All right, before we get any more off topic, stage three, when the sun enters gate 61. This happens about 6 days later on January 11th. And I feel like this is really interesting because this is what we would typically do at the end of like a calendar year. This is when we start like experiencing a little bit more introspection and not just reflection. And this is like my favorite thing, right? Like understanding the why behind the things and using Miko's favorite word, understanding your potential, I think, for the new year is really cool. So that's kind of what we're seeing in this third stage, this third week before we hit stage four. What do you got about 61?
yeah, I mean, you've explained it already. Gate 61 is about the why, and it's also a head gate. It depends as well, always when we look at gates, what does your design look like? So this is an important point that I would like to make now, because depending on whether your head center is defined in this case, because it's in the head center, the gate 61, or if it's undefined, it's going to impact you differently. It's also going to impact you differently if you have the other side of the gate, in this case, the gate 24. It will have a different impact, or even if you have the full channel. And that being said, whatever we are talking about regarding 2024, these are energetic influences. So it's very, very important to understand that these are things that are influencing you, and they can impact you in a positive way, or they can be in a down-pulling way if you let it. And it's always, everything is always your choice, and that's the beauty about human design. You always have a choice if you want to go towards your light aspect or towards the sides regarding the energies of the year. These are things to look out for. These are things that they can pull you away from who you truly are, but they can also support your path. So that is when we're giving a solar return, for example. This would be your unique predictions in some way for the year 2024. And I'm using the word predictions here very lightly because actually, if you get a solar return, or when you're looking at these influences, these energetic influences, the more that they are correct, so the more I tell you and the more that actually happens within that year for you, the less you are aligned to yourself. Because you have to think about this, you have your personal chart and you have the transits chart. So this is the year 2024. So both of these are two different energies. And when you put both of these energies together, you create a third individual or a third being. So it's important to always remind yourself to who you are. What is your chart? What is your consistent energy that you carry within yourself? And what is the year 2024 giving us? And that's why you will only be able to make the right decisions in the moment. So even though I tell you right now, okay, this is the energy that can support you in this, this, and that, or even in solar returns, you can say, okay, this is a person that will step into your life. But it's your choice if you give that person space in your life or if you walk away from that person because they maybe don't feel right to you in that moment. And that is the important thing, always getting back to your strategy and inner authority. So I got a little bit off topic again, but I feel like this is a very important point to mention while we're going through all of this, that this is not a prediction per se. It is showing you the influences that are floating around, and it's a remembering of your own design and going according to your strategy and inner authority, always going back to this.
Some would say accessing your potential.
Yes. Some would.
Some would say that. I feel like you use that word all the time, and I love it because it's not definitive in a way that can like constrict someone, and it can just show someone quite literally their potential, right? Like what they can achieve, and it's so beautiful to think of it like that. So
yeah,
amazing. All right, guys, stage 4, last but not least. The sun enters gate 60 on January 17th, or rather it did, because we're talking about this now in the past. So it did do this. And I read this out to Miko actually before we started recording, or maybe, it was definitely before we restarted before we started recording. Oh my God, words are hard tonight, guys. Anyway, so the passage I want to recite to you is how beautiful and peaceful it is to be able to rest within yourself and to find the truth within. Getting to this place is about letting go of the past and letting go of all of it. And not just simply letting go of what didn't work, but also being ready to step forward into this new experiential cycle. So think about limitation as something extraordinary because it's all about the transcendence of it, right? It's about getting to that next step, getting through whatever you're experiencing and seeing the beauty and the peace on the other side of it. And I think that is absolutely beautiful, which also I think takes patience because like the whole world in theory, right, is making New Year's resolutions at the end of the year to the beginning of the year, or the trend that was 2024 is like, what are you leaving in 2023? Like what's out and what's in 2024? I haven't been on the gram very much, so I like heard that from someone else. But what if you waited like 3 weeks, right? Like habits take 21 days to happen. So like what if you just waited 3 weeks in January, or 22 days as per ye old rave calendar? What if you waited? And what if decisions became more aligned? They probably would be. So yeah, what are your thoughts on gate 60 and the rest of this shenanigans?
I really loved what you just read to us. it's already kind of getting into the woo-woo spiritual direction, and we like
Yes.
that. We love the balance of keeping your feet firmly planted on the ground, but also understanding that there is another level, another dimension in life as well. And it's super important to just merge both of these things, to not completely lose sight of the material world, but also understanding that there are things way beyond those worlds. So when it comes to gate 60, Pluto has been in this gate for a very long time, and this is again still going to carry through into this new year 2024. We have a quick short shift of Pluto coming into gate 41, but that is only for maybe, it's less than a month. It starts on April 12th, and I think it ends on May 23rd, but the exact day I don't know, but it's less than a month. And in that time, or approximately a month, a little bit more than a month, actually. Calculations also. So yeah, it's in this time frame, we're going to get a gist of what this year 2027 that everyone is talking about in human design community, we're going to get a short insight into what that feels like. But it's only going to be a short amount of time. It's going to give us a bit of a positive outlook, because at the moment, Pluto is all about transformation. It can be quite shocking. It's a very long transiting planet. It's a generational planet, that's how you call it. And that means that we have a long time to really get to understand this energy. And Pluto enters gate 41, but is going to leave it again shortly because it's then going into retrogrades. We're going to make a whole different podcast episode about retrogrades, because that's a whole topic in itself. But just to say that these limitations, we are still surrounded by these limitations from the outside. We have a lot of support energetically to get through this. So while we may feel constricted and limited from the outside world, this gives us another opportunity to step inward. So this is kind of what happened with Corona as well. It was really us being shut off from one another, from the world, stepping more onto the virtual platforms, virtual lives. But also you had a choice during Corona to either go into a direction that is improving yourself on all levels. So body, mind, energy, spirit, emotions, all of that. Or you had the choice to continue the patterns, the negative patterns that you had even before Corona. So I feel like this is just, it's not to say that we're going to go through Corona situation again, but we are going to still feel quite limited. So it's not yet the time this year to really burst out and experience the full force of freedom, but finding this freedom within the limitation, that is what is going to still be important even this year.
I'm excited for the brief little glimpse into 27 that we're gonna have with Pluto in 41. I'm kind of excited, not gonna lie. Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah,
especially
it's another
having
root
to
gate.
Oh, oof. External pressure, I don't know if I can handle that.
And it's pointing towards the emotional solar plexus. The good news is that we had a very emotional year in 2023. So we had both channels 1949 and 4130 connected. Those are both from root to emotional solar plexus. So it was a very emotional year. We are now moving into a very different direction, which is good news for everyone, especially for everyone that has an undefined or open emotional solar plexus. Year 2023 could have been a very emotionally filled year, especially if you don't know about human design. Because
Yeah.
having the emotional solar plexus defined is just by something else or someone else can be so overwhelming. And Celestina can also tell us a little bit about that
Ooh,
because she
ooh.
also has it undefined.
I do have it undefined, and both of my parents are emotional authorities. My dad is a 6-2 emotional manifesting generator, and my mom is a 2-4 emotional manifesting generator. And don't get me wrong, I love them. However, I amp up their emotions to the next level. And I didn't recognize that when I was a kid or like a teenager, right? So I just like get pissed off and like storm upstairs into my bedroom, as most teenagers do. But living with my parents as a grown ass adult was a whole different ball game. But I'm so grateful that I knew and understand their human designs because it allowed me to, I think, keep my emotions in check more, even though last year was an emotional shit show on so many different levels, like human design transit wise, but also just like life wise for me. We'll probably go into that in another episode as well. But yeah, I think it's very helpful to understand what you feel like by yourself. And I think the best way to do that, this is also, take this with a grain of salt because it's coming from a 6-2, right? Like hermit who loves to be by herself. So take that with a grain of salt. But I think it's very helpful understanding who you are when you are by yourself versus who you are when you're with someone else. Um, because I know that when I'm with my parents, I elevate their emotions. For example, on the 17th of this month, stage 4 of our journey through Rave New Year, I ended up dropping a class, quite literally the capstone class of my master's degree. I was 11 weeks away from being done, but it was way too much on top of a brand new job where I'm quite literally putting out fires, not literal fires. I'm not a fire person. Um, but I'm putting out fires in my job on the daily, and it was the real life version of the projects that I had in that class. So I texted my parents the morning after I dropped the class. I was like, "Hey guys, just like wanted to let you know I dropped this class. It'll be a little bit before I get my master's." And immediately I got text, "Oh my God, are you okay? Why did you do that? You were so close." My mom, like, as soon as she got out of work, FaceTimed me. She's like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this? I was screaming at my phone at work." I'm like, "Ma, you're like a 10 out of 10 right now." And I started telling her last year, I was like, "You're a little extra. Like, can we just bring it down a notch?" And I explained her human design to her and like how we interact and how I, like, having an open emotional center can like elevate her emotions and my dad's emotions for that matter. And she has a better understanding of it now, but it's so funny to like still see them react. And like, I know that I have to keep my cool. That was a really long story explanation, but hopefully that makes sense to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you are undefined, you're taking in their emotions. This can be either undefined or open, but you're taking in other people's emotions and you're amplifying them. So that's what you were experiencing in your childhood. As you explained, you would
Oh yeah.
storm upstairs, and I personally would also shut my doors so enthusiastically, let's call it like that. And once I actually broke it by doing that. So
Oh my God.
yeah, I had a lot of. I'm very strong, and yeah, my emotions got the best of me, and the door didn't survive. But that's what happens when someone has their emotional solar plexus defined, or when it is being defined through the planets, as I said, and you are undefined or open, you're taking it in and amplifying that, especially when you're undefined. So with an open solar plexus, what I've seen is that people actually need more time, so they can have a bit of a autistic kind of feel to them, where they don't understand emotions very well, especially if it's wide open. So if there are no gates pointing towards the emotional solar plexus, if there are no gates coming out of the emotional solar plexus, that would be wide open. Open would be if there would be no gates in the emotional solar plexus. And undefined is when there are some gates coming out, but the emotional solar plexus is just not defined, so not colored. And when it's completely open, what can happen is that people feel a bit autistic because they don't understand emotions very well, and they need to go through life for a certain amount of time. This varies from person to person until they really get to understand what are emotions, what do these things mean, and how can I handle them? And yeah, you just take them in from others, and you're not aware that this is a mechanic within you. You can be called the drama queen and the very emotional one, but you are actually not. Because for me, when I'm by myself, it feels like I'm a calm sea, like everything is totally calm. If it's not defined by the planets, and if it's not defined by anyone. So if I'm by myself in the forest, for example, no transits that are connecting my emotional solar plexus, I feel really calm. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I don't have emotions. Of course I have emotions, but I don't feel them as strong. I don't have these waves. I don't, it just doesn't feel emotional when I'm by myself.
Yeah, I can agree. And the only other human I'm around a lot is my husband, and he's also not defined emotionally, which I think just keeps us both pretty even keel, except for my like, whether it's hormonal or like manifestor anger. Occasionally, we're pretty chill.
Yeah, and this is exactly what I mean, because we all have so manifestors, as Celestina mentioned, has this anger inside of them when they're not following things that make them feel peaceful. So that's actually, a manifestor is very peaceful when they're following their purpose and when they're empowering other people. That is also very important for manifestors. So there are these emotions that are still within you, and also depending on some other centers, like for example, feeling pressure. This is also something coming from the root center. It can also cause emotions within you, but yeah, this just a little excursion into the emotional solar plexus.
Oh, yeah, that was a deep excursion into the emotional solar plexus. All right, so getting back on track to the Rave New Year, is there anything else you wanted to go deeper on?
Oh, for sure. We're just getting started.
Amazing.
So for that, I'm going to start sharing my screen.
Yes. Love a good
Because
screen share.
Now we're going to get into a few more in-depth.
Yes.
Can you see it?
Oh, hell yeah. Cool.
Perfect. So now it jumped back to today. So the Rave New Year was on the 22nd of January at 1617. This is Saudi Arabia time. So if you would like to pull up this chart as well yourselves, then you can check it either this way, or you can go to mybodygraph.com. This may, however, only be the pro version that is acceptable, where you can go through the ephemeris. That's what it's called. I'm going to show you what that looks like. And then you can see the exact time on when the sun and the earth entered into these new gates.
So cool.
So this is what 2024 looks like. If you're looking at it, then you will see what it looks like. And if you're just listening to this podcast, we have only one channel that is defined. This is basically screenshot of the year's energy. And this screenshot is taken on the moment when the sun moves into gate 41.1, basically. So it goes from 60.6 to 41.1. And in this year, we have the channel 5710 that is defined. So what we're looking at, especially when it comes to these New Year's, the look into the new year, what it brings us, we're looking at Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, Jupiter. So these are the generational planets. We're also looking a little bit at Mars, Venus, Mercury, the nodes, so North and South node, and the moon. The sun and the earth are usually, they're always the same. However, the earth in this case is in detriment. So I'm still going to mention this this time around. I can see that it's not showing the earth in our graph. So it should be defined here in the 31st gate. And the channel 5710 is really about intuitive insights for yourself. So here you can now see it properly. This is the 31st gate that was not defined earlier. Now we can see it. And the 57 is one of the most intuitive gates in the human design chart. So when you have this defined, you're very, very intuitive. When the spleen is defined as well, so this is this triangle here, the brown triangle on the left side of your human design chart. When that is defined, you have a consistent way of tapping into your energy. It also always depends on whether something is red or black. In this case, this is the transit, so we're not adding the unconscious aspects to a transit. And the 10th gate is the love of self. So it's got a lot to do with treating yourself well, loving yourself. So it's definitely a great year to use your intuition and to tap into these intuitive aspects for yourself. I'm just going to pull up my notes because I also went a little bit into the asteroids this time around. I didn't want to just give you the usual human design planets, but I also wanted to look at the asteroids as well.
Of course not. Why just go regular old human design planets when you can go asteroids? Please, we're not plebes.
I know, always. I can't resist. Okay, so we have in the 57th gate, actually in gate 10, so Venus is in gate 10, as you can see here, 10.1. And Venus is about, in this case, line 1. The gate is called treading, and the line 1 is modesty. So if you're using the exalted energy, so the uplifting energy, it's an innate sense to know and accept one's place. So within these limitations that you're going to be feeling around you, you're still going to have the energy to understand what your place is. How can you use your potential to break through these limitations, or to use these limitations as a positive and work within these limitations according to your potential. And it's also giving you a feeling of feeling valued and purposeful, no matter what your position is. And you know your worth despite the circumstances. So Venus is just exalted. It doesn't have a detriment in this case, at least in this year. And the asteroids we have here are Cassandra. So you may feel like you're not being believed by others. So the thing is to look out for during this year is, yes, focus on self-love. Focus on intuition. especially focusing on intuition in the first half of the year, because this is in our south node. 57.5 is in our south node. So the first half of the year really is about tapping into your intuition, getting to understand your inner authority, trying to decipher it, and doing a lot of body scan meditations to really get a hang of your intuition, using pendulums, using tarot cards, whatever you feel is right to tap into your intuition. And then guiding that towards self-love and filling your own cup first, especially, as I said, in the first half of the year. Yes.
Yo, quick note on this. I chose a
Yes.
word for the year, not even knowing this at all, but I didn't like solidify my word probably until like last Wednesday. My word this year
Mm.
is ego.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh my
Yeah.
God. So good. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. I like that. I was actually also listening to a few people choosing. They chose three words,
Oh, it's a
and
lot.
yeah, it's a lot. But there was a lot of yeah. It resembles your word basically what they have chosen, and especially for you, it's so powerful because of your ego authority. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. Keep going.
perfect. No, no, if you, I'd love to hear your feedback as well. So just interrupt me whenever you feel like it.
Oh, you're good. No, yeah, that was my little interruption for you. Keep going, Boo Boo Kitten.
Thank you. So we also have Toro in gate 10, and that is about strength and perseverance. So here as well, you will have the strength to follow your self-love processes. Whatever you feel like you need to do to love yourself a little bit more. And Aphrodite is also in this gate. So this is really about finding love through yourself.
Ooh.
Aphrodite, whenever she's in the chart, it can change a lot on the gate that she's in, on the planets that are opposite her, or on the same gate with her. So this is a feminine energy that you have this year to nurture and support yourself, but with strength.
She sounds like a badass bitch.
Oh, yeah, she is. I mean, she's the goddess of war as well, not just beauty.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's a good one. No, actually, Aphrodite is, yeah, she's mainly love and beauty, but she can have some very feisty elements to her depending on which planets she's with.
I love that for her and for us.
Yes. These two energies are very prominent and important in this chart because it's the only channel that we have. Then we have, I'm going to go back to the top of this list, which is the Earth, and that's in detriment, as I have mentioned. So the 31st gate in detriment, line 1. And the 31st gate is a lot about leadership. So that is
Mm.
very important when it comes to this year as well. Numerologically, even this year has a lot of leadership power to it. So make sure that you don't, when you're invited into a leadership position, try to go for it if it feels right for you. Like, don't let your ego be get in the way, or don't let your those negative voices in your head get in the way, but really feel into, is this right for me to step into this leadership position? Because we're going to be surrounded by propaganda as well this year. There's going to be a lot of people telling you things that don't sound very correct and are probably not correct, just to get their agenda across, like just to maybe become president, or to spread some kind of new medicational treatment or something like this. And these things are probably going to also come to light. So hold out a little bit before believing things and really be a bit skeptical about the things that are being spread, because there is a lot of propaganda going to be floating around. And these leaders that are trying to tell us things that don't sound very right, listen to your instincts. Really, this is the year to do this, to listen to your instincts and to hone in on them. There's also going to be a lot of it's going to be hard work, but it's going to pay off. So if you put in the work, it's going to pay off for you. This is still astrologically speaking, but the Earth in the detriment is basically that influence cannot exist in a vacuum. So this is line 1, which is called manifestation. And if you don't give the wrong leaders space, they cannot exist. That's basically what it means. Ooh. So be mindful who you give space. The unnatural expression of leadership can still come up, but just if you don't give them space, they don't have the power.
Dude. So I guess backstory, I just started a new job like 2 weeks ago, and this is all so relevant to what I've been experiencing these past couple of weeks. So it's great to have this, I guess, reassurance, but also like the potential that this year can be with these amazing insights. And I think that also helps me very much reflect on my decisions as a leader as to who I present potential leadership roles to. You know, this is really freaking cool. Keep going.
No, for sure. I mean, this is definitely something I'm going to keep my eye out for as well, regarding propaganda and also just generally leadership. And yeah, your karma will pay out this year. So whatever you've put into your karma bucket, good or bad, it probably will come back this year in some ways, at least.
Yeah.
So I hope you put a lot of good in there.
I think it's really interesting, the channel from the spleen to the identity center. I feel like that is going to bring such interesting energy into this year in particular, right? Like the knowing who you are piece, in addition to having the self-intuition piece, it's very ego-centered, but I feel like in a good way. And I feel like you said that too, but I feel like that just having that, the 10 to the, I can't remember what number that is.
57.
Thanks. The 10 to the 57 is going to be so interesting to witness, I think, this year.
Definitely. Yes, definitely. I agree. I can't wait. Well,
it's going to be really cool.
By now, I mean, we can already tap into it. And this is still just a screenshot. So as in a moment in time. And it gives us the energy for the year, but it always depends on what is in your own personal chart as well. So for us, and for especially you as well, this is a full channel and 2 centers that don't exist in your chart. So it's going to... Yeah, it's going to also impact you being able to connect with your physical health, your body, understanding what is right and what is not right for you. And also it can provide you with a sense of direction as well, depending on which gates are also defined in your G center. Yeah. So the G center is about love and direction. And yeah, depending on which gates are defined, it can also just amplify that in your chart.
Oh, 2024.
Yeah. So yeah, it's still not a year where, at least not the first half of the year, where you really step out, and it's still a bit of this hibernation kind of feeling and this limitation feeling, except for this from 12th of April. Just for about a month, where you can step out of that a little bit. But it's just a taste. It's kind of like a glimmer of hope that you're going to feel with the start code on 41st gate in Pluto. Yeah, and then we have Mercury. So here again, we've already talked about gate 38 in the introduction, the gate of the fighter. And we have this gate in Mercury and in Mars. So we have it in Mercury in line 1, and we have it in Mars in line 4. And when it comes to Mercury, you probably know this already, again, with the Mercury retrograde. We had it in the intro already, but it's really a lot about communication. So just be very mindful of your communication and choose your fights correctly. So the gate of the fighter has and this in Mercury as well, it's going to be a lot of potential warrior energy in your voice, in your speech, in the things that you hear around you as well. In the communication, and it's also in Mars. So Mars is a very playful kind of energy, but very masculine. So it kind of is a bit like the Fool in the Tarot, where it's a very new energy and it needs to be honed in on. So you need to get to understand it. Everything in your chart, when it's Mercury, it's something that develops, it's something that you grow into, and you really need to hone in on that skill. The interesting thing about the 38th gate in Mars is that Psyche is also in this gate. This is another asteroid. And that is about transformation and perfection through love. So while we do have this gate, the fighter, defined in this year, and we have this energy moving forward, when you're fighting for something, don't forget about love. And remember to also be polite about things. So there is a way to fight, but maybe step more into the feminine way of fighting. So we also have Pallas Athena, which is a fighter. This is the war goddess, one of the elements, but she fights in a more defense way, and she is very, very strategic and very wise, and she's the one that was born out of her father Zeus's head, already ready in a uniform, like full of armor and everything. So she was born ready, basically.
So it sounds like fighting, but with a little bit more diplomacy.
Yes, diplomacy, and really more from the heart, like only fight for things that really are worth it. And this is again specifically for us as well, just following our hearts and only fighting for things that resonate with our hearts. Like what is it that we really believe in? And also be very clear in your intentions. So Circe is also in this gate, and if you are very clear in your intentions, you have a strong ability to facilitate good for others as well. So yeah, it's a very strong fighting energy in a more feminine way. So you still stand up for yourself, but choose your battles wisely, basically. When it comes to then we have the South Node, so the second half of the year. No, the first half of the year, sorry. The second half of the year is the North Node, so the gate 57. No, sorry. The South Node is in gate 57 and the North Node is in gate 51. So the second half of the year, the North Node, there we go, because we already talked about the South Node, we have gate 51.5. And this is called the arousing / the line is called symmetry. I got a bit confused because I had just before this, I had switched the two around so that I have the actual order of things. And then I was like, oh, no, wait. Okay, no. Yeah, so now I'm in the right order, but my mind was still in the old one. Then then we have this gate either. So you have the choice. You have the choice to go into the exaltation or into the detriment. And if it's exalted, you choose the right decisions even when shocking, as these shocks will transform you to propel you forward. So gate 51 is a gate that's in my personal design. I have gate 51 and 25, so it's this shocking transformation kind of aspect of this full channel. And we're also going to experience both. We are going to also have elements of gate 25 coming along throughout the year. So we do have these shocking transformative elements. And if you really need to make the right choices regarding which shocks can I put myself through and the people around me through, that yes, they will be shocking, but they will also be transformative. So there are some times where we choose things that seem super shocking to everyone around us, and they also shock our own system. But these can be extremely transformative if chosen correctly. And the way that you do that is by following your strategy. Because if you choose wrong, one shock will follow the next. So it's just going to be an endless loop. And also be mindful of not being too overconfident in your victories, because if you are, then you will lose vigilance. So just another thing to think about in 2024.
So too much shocking can basically cause an earthquake, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, and it can leave cracks, and we don't want cracks. We want shock, but we don't want cracks per se, or we don't want you to break your vase, your vessel. Yeah, and then we are going to move to Jupiter. So now we're going into the generational planets, this a little bit slower moving planets, although Jupiter is still one of the faster generational moving planets still, but it's still slower than the other ones like Mars, Venus, and stuff like that. And Jupiter is going to remind us to set boundaries. This is also a very big one. Gate 27, pointing towards the spleen. This channel is a lot about values and nurturing others. So it's a very family-oriented, tribal-oriented gate. And the gate is called Nourishment, and the line is called the Executor. Executor, there we go.
Not to kill people.
Yeah, learn not to kill people. Set boundaries in who tries to kill you. So the exalted version, this is exalted only, and it's about being able to distribute the resources of others effectively. So either you know how to do it yourself, or you're able to find others who can help you do so. So this is an energy, you may really like this one with your 2145 channel, resources and stuff. So you can really help others use their resources properly, and being able to distribute the resources of others as well adequately. So this setting boundaries is especially important for anyone who doesn't have gate 50. So if you don't have gate 50 in your chart, just really watch out for this in 2024, to learn to set boundaries.
You know, it's really funny that you said that I would really enjoy that channel. My husband has that full channel.
Oh, see? Very good. Well,
he has it completely defined.
He has it. So it's completely conscious?
Yeah, completely conscious, yeah.
Wow. Okay, cool. Then he will know this energy. So yeah, if you already have a gate or a channel defined that is defined in this 2024 year, then you will be able to connect with it even more. And it can also, it can bring this out of you even more as well. So especially if you have, like, for example, if you have gate 50 and gate 27 is coming in, it provides you with the full channel. So you're really going to be able to use this gate 50 energy and finally connect it to your sacral energy, which gives you the power to do what you want to do. So with channels, you always have one side, but you also kind of need the other side to use the full potential of this energy. And this can come along through transits, through other people. Yeah.
I can tell you I definitely tap into it when I have to get something done. I just like sit next to him and I'm like, yo, just let me tap into that sacral real quick. Cause yeah, he and I connect. I'm looking right now from we have a 214, so from the G center to the sacral, and then he gives me the 5027 as well as the 659 and
Oh.
the 360. So I'm
Wow.
like full on, like, let me get shit done when I'm with my husband.
Wow. Yes,
Yeah,
seriously, because you have the pressure from the root, the adrenaline to do so. You have the 214, which gives you like it's the driver.
yeah,
It's giving you the direction, and you have the 659, which is also giving you this project orientation kind of. It's like bringing things to life, birthing things. It's also very fertile channel, so it's
girl.
not
I cleaned the
just.
whole house yesterday.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's yeah, that's very
And then I
beneficial.
went to work.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know.
just
So, yes, guys, you are going to do some good shit this year with this little essence of this energy. I can tell you that as a non-sacral being.
well, the sacral is not defined. So in this case, you would still have to have the gate 50 to tap into this energy fully, or you would have to have your sacral defined.
All right,
So
well,
for the
find yourself a
non
generator.
and sit next to them from morning till evening. No. Yeah, but it's, I mean, for you, it's really from all directions. So you
Literally.
have, yeah, it's a very powerful connection that he gives you there, or that powerful energy that he provides you.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, just know that you also, I mean, you already know that, but
Try
needing your
sleeping next to
space.
him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they don't stop buzzing or
Yeah.
humming or
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
I get that.
Yeah. So Saturn.
Yeah, that I mean Saturn in gate 55.6 is abundance, and the line is selfishness. So this is again reflecting your word, the ego, in a.
Ego, man.
I mean, yeah, but it's exalted, so there's no detriment in this case. And it's being able to find the spirit through material goods. So I found that very interesting, being able to obtain goods that prove beneficial to others as well. So it's coming back to how we started, to really have your feet planted on the ground, but also understanding that we are material beings and we need to embrace all aspects. It doesn't mean that you're going to find God in a Louis Vuitton handbag, but
Are you sure?
well, now that I said that, yeah, who knows? But it's basically through material things, you can
Mm.
still connect with source. So this could also be a drum, like maybe you start to feel more connected to musical instruments, for example, or to journaling, because it's still a material thing. You can also connect through it through charity work, for example. I mean, there are many ways of using material goods to connect deeper to source.
I think I feel like societally, that is not necessarily an acceptable way to connect, right? Because, I mean, I'm thinking of like Buddhist monks, right?
Yeah.
For example, they minimalist lives and not really having possessions, right? Oftentimes relying on the community for food, even. So, it's very interesting that this in particular is, I guess, not necessarily promoting like materialisticness and like material items, but like it's a way of gaining better insights potentially
Yeah,
to
for sure.
yourself from external items. Just it's just a very interesting way of going about it, I think.
Yeah, and I like that you brought that up because absolutely in the spiritual world, it is not a very accepted thought process, or definitely not something that is being promoted that way. Less is more of the attitude in that case, but
Yeah.
in this channel has a lot to do with as well the creation of religions. So
Mm,
churches, for example, and temples, they were that it's a material thing, but it
yeah.
provides you with a connection to source and spirit. And
Mm,
I mean, I wouldn't. And it's that's why it's good that you brought it up, because it's not about going out and purchasing all the things that you think make you happy, like for example iPhones, MacBooks, like all electronical gadgets that you can get, because that would take
yeah.
you away from source. All this electro smog is not really beneficial to spend all your time in front of electronic devices,
Yeah.
but really choosing the material goods that you invest in wisely. And it can also be decluttering and reducing the material things that you have, but also just giving focus to things that you feel help you connect more to source in some way. And maybe
Mm,
even decluttering in that way that you say, okay, I feel like Marie Kondo, she's someone that always says, okay, before you throw something away or give something away, it's not really about
yes, she's
throwing
like,
away. She always says, hold it in your hands and feel into it. Do you feel love for it, or do you feel
yeah.
connected to it in a way? And this
Does it
is,
bring you joy?
does it bring you joy? Yes. So this is kind of the
Yeah.
thing that, yeah,
Yeah. I like that though. I feel like that just brings a different perspective
yeah,
to material items and not necessarily associating that with being materialistic.
yes, exactly.
Yeah. Very cool.
I agree. So we're nearly at the end of it. So we have next Neptune, and Neptune in 36.4. Neptune is a lot about veiling things. So this is an energy that is going to
Mm,
come in and out, and it's going to show itself a little bit, and then it's going to flicker out again. And this gate is called the darkening of the light, and it's connected to espionage in this line.
mm,
And this is about being able to decipher and use the secret insights gathered to help move through crisis. This is kind of what it's called, or the line definition. And in in the detriment, you have a double agent that offers one service to survive. So this is very
ooh,
cryptic, and a lot of times these lines are also very cryptically described. But the way that I feel it can support you is to, again, going back to the propaganda, understanding what is right
mm,
and what is wrong in this information that you receive. And it's coming out of the emotional solar plexus going towards the throat. And this channel is a lot about new experiences as well. So if you do have gate 35, you may feel pulled towards creating new experiences. Um, and it's also, again, about using the information that you've collected in like this espionage kind of way, but using
mm,
it for good instead of bad. So really
mm.
understanding what it is that you want to share. We have gate 12 as well, coming from the throat, which we didn't talk about yet. But that is really about understanding the correct moment to share things. So you need to often wait for the invitation to share. And if you wait for invitation to share, regardless if you're a projector or manifestor or whatever it is. But then you have the power to express it properly. So gate 12 is a lot about having a lot of power and strength in your words, but choosing the right information. Then we go back to gate 36.4, like choosing the right information to be shared.
Ooh. Dude, honestly, even like a week and a half in, not even 6 days in. Okay, it just turned to be the 28th, even though we started recording on the 27th. I'm living in the future. Um, but dude, that hits so hard. Like, I'm thinking of even times within this past week, like, I've been on this great informing experiment, if you will, as a manifester. And like, I'm really doing my best to inform. But also in a leadership role that I'm in, I very much have to be cognizant as to who I inform and not just like letting it be an information galore to staff, right? Like it needs to be to like the management level. And it's very interesting that this coincides with that, right? So I
Yeah,
think being cognizant about like when and where information is being shared and how that information is being acquired espionagely, it's not a word. um,
yeah, absolutely.
but it's very interesting that that is kind of the vibes of this year as well. mm, this is so much to think on and ruminate on. mm.
I
Okay, continue.
agree. Well, we already talked about Pluto, the
We
limitation,
did.
which is in line for resourcefulness. And this is really about maximization of potential within these limitations. So again,
mm.
just that's what it's about.
So
Understanding the limitations that you have around you, using that to step inwards as well, using your intuition to make the right choices for yourself, caring for yourself, and you have the support, the planetary support to do so. And really always going back to your inner authority and strategy to make the decisions in the moment, because that's where it's going to be right or wrong for you.
yeah. So what I'm hearing is do your best with what you got.
Yeah. And don't be influenced by the world around you. Stick to your path.
Yeah. Dude, this is definitely like the year of the individual and self-intuition. Like, you know what? The motto of the year is you do you, boo boo kitten.
Yes.
This whole podcast episode could have been summed up into you do you, boo boo kitten.
Yeah. I feel like I just spent 50 minutes of explaining and you just summed
No,
it
but
up.
that was such good preference into you do you, boo boo kitten. And that might have to be the closing of every show for the rest of this year.
And also, thank you for listening.
Oh, yeah, that too.
No, yeah, that's pretty much it for this year. I mean, there's a lot more, as there always is, especially when you combine the charts with your personal chart. There's just so
Oh,
much more you
yeah.
can take out of it. But as an overview, that's the energy that you will be feeling and the one that is going to be floating around.
I'm excited for 2024. And then add in your like daily transit energy, and that shit can get whack. Dude, I've had
Yes.
like a completely illuminated chart with transits before, and it's too much. And I know it's not me, and I need a nap.
Oh. Yeah, I get that. That's what my brother always says, is sleeping is the best medicine for when he
He's not
feels
wrong.
overwhelmed.
Yeah. I would love to see the transits on the days when he's just like, too much, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that was extremely insightful, Miko. And obviously you are a wealth of knowledge, a fountain of knowledge, if you will.
Well, it's yeah. I really love it. It's just an endless amount of insight that you can gain from human design, and I feel like it's never going to stop. I feel like I will be learning this for the rest of my life. And I love
I
it.
love that. Yeah, dude, I love that for you. And also, I feel like because of your defined ajna, you're able to describe it and explain it so well. I feel like I don't have that eloquency when it comes to it because I don't have a defined ajna. And like for you, obviously as a quad left, like preparing for this is ideal. And for me, I'm just like flying by the seat of my pants. I did a little bit of research this morning and I'm like, I'm going to speak from my heart because that's all I got. So it's really cool to see the way that like we also like interact with each other on this platform. And I know you guys are just hearing it. And like we've had multiple conversations, more than multiple, hundreds of conversations in real life. But it's cool to like see it come into fruition and for you guys to be able to listen to it too.
So true, yes. And you're so right. I mean, in the introduction, I wasn't prepared and my quad left was acting up. I was.
A little nervous.
I can't do it. I really need my notes. And it's just, I mean, this is also what this is all about. We want to support you on your experiment, you the listener, and we also want to share about our own journey and how we're going through it, because this is an endless growth and learning journey, and just to see the interactions between us is as a quad left and someone that has just a defined throat and an ego and just an open head, open ajna, and yeah.
Open spleen.
Open
I got all the open shit, man.
Yeah. To left, to right
Yeah.
arrows. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah. I think we complement each other well. Let us know, guys, if you think we're wild and crazy or cool as shit.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. It was a pleasure being here again.
Can't wait till next week. Till we talk
Yes.
about, not sure yet, but it's going to be great.
Okay. Bye everyone.
Says the quad left. Okay, it's going to be great, guys. Love you. Bye.
It will, I'm sure.
It
I'm
will.
having fun. As
It
long
will
as
be
we're having
great.
fun.
Yes, exactly. Bye, guys.
Bye.